I think someone who looks exactly like me works at my job and it's freaking me out. Okay, so this is gonna sound absolutely insane, but I need to get this off my chest because I'm low-key having a mental breakdown, and my roommates think I'm either pranking them or having some kind of episode. I'm a junior at state school and I work part-time at this Barnes & Noble about 15 minutes off campus. It's a pretty chill job, mostly just shelving books and working register, nothing crazy. Been there since August, so like 3 months now. So this all started happening around mid-October, when the weather started getting cold, and everyone's walking around campus looking dead inside from midterms. You know the vibe. I've been keeping a journal since this started happening. I'll give you the timeline. Incident 1 happened on October 18th. I'm scheduled to work 2 to 8 p.m. on this Thursday. I get there right at 2 and clock in. Normal day, whatever. But when I walk onto the floor, my manager, Sarah, gives me this weird look and goes, "Oh hey, glad you decided to come back." I'm like, "What do you mean come back?" And she just stares at me for a second and goes, "Never mind, just grab cart 3 and start with the fiction section." Weird, but whatever. Sarah's always been a little spacey. So I'm shelving books and this older customer comes up to me and she's like, "Oh good, you're here. I was looking for you earlier, but the other girl said you'd left already." I tell her I just got here, and she gives me this confused look like I'm messing with her. Then she goes, "No honey, you helped me find a cookbook around noon. You recommended that new Ina Gardner one. I work Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm literally in organic chemistry lab every day at noon." I tell her she's got me confused with someone else, and she just walks away looking annoyed. Incident 2 happened on October 29th. This one really messed me up. I'm working the evening shift again, and I stop by the bathroom before my break ends. When I come out, there's this group of girls from my dorm standing by the young adult section. I know them, but we're not like super close or anything. One of them, Jessica, sees me and waves. "Hey, didn't expect to see you again." I'm like, "I work here." And she laughs and goes, "Yeah, I know, but didn't you just leave like an hour ago? I saw you clocking out when we walked in." Guys, I had been there since 2 p.m. It was like 6:30. I definitely didn't clock out. So I'm standing there trying to process this, and Jessica's friend Emma chimes in. "Yeah, you seem super tired. You barely said hi when we walked past you in the parking lot." I asked them to describe exactly what they saw, and Jessica goes, "You were wearing your work vest and you looked exhausted. You waved, but you seemed like you were in a hurry to get out of here." I was wearing my work vest. I was tired. I'd been up until 3 a.m. writing a paper, but I was still on the clock working my shift. Incident 3 happened November 8th. Okay, this is where it gets really weird. I'm not scheduled to work Mondays, but I needed to pick up my paycheck, so I stopped by around 4 p.m. The store's pretty busy with the usual after-school crowd. I walk up to customer service to get my check, and the new girl working there, I think her name is Madison, sees me and immediately looks confused. Didn't you just call in sick like 2 hours ago?" I tell her no, I'm not even scheduled to work today. I'm just picking up my check. She pulls up the schedule on the computer and shows me. There's my name, scheduled 1 to 9 p.m. on Monday, with a note that says called in sick at 2:15 p.m., stomach flu. I never called in sick. I've never called that store in my life. I always just show up for my shifts or talk to managers in person. But here's the part that made my skin crawl. Madison goes, "That's so weird because when you called, you sounded totally normal, not sick at all." I even asked if you wanted me to find someone to cover the rest of your shift, and you said no, you'd handle it. She said I sounded totally normal, like my regular voice. Incident 4 happened on November 15th. I almost quit after this one. I'm working a Saturday morning shift, pretty dead in the store. Around 11 a.m., I'm in the back room getting more inventory when I hear Sarah talking to someone out on the floor. She said, "Really appreciate you coming in early to help with the shipment. I know you weren't scheduled until 2. I poke my head out and don't see anyone else in a work vest. I walk over to Sarah and ask who she was talking to. "You," she says, like it's obvious. "I've been here since 9, I tell her. She gets this look on her face like I'm screwing with her. "No, you just got here 20 minutes ago. You said you wanted to get the new shipment processed before the Saturday rush." I show her my time card, clocked in at 8:57 a.m. She looks at it, looks at me, and I can see her brain just breaking a little bit. "That's impossible," she says. "I was literally just talking to you by the registers." We walk over to the registers together. Nobody there. She calls out my name and nobody answers. Incident 5 happened on November 21st, so 3 days ago. This is the one that made me write this post. I wasn't even at work. I was studying at the campus library. But my phone starts blowing up around 2 p.m. with texts from my coworker Mike. They read, "Dude, where did you go? You just vanished. Sarah's looking for you. Your register is still open with a customer waiting." I call him back immediately, and he's like, "Bro, what? Where are you? You were just here 2 seconds ago helping this lady find a birthday card and then you just vanished." I tell him I'm at the library and I've been there since noon. He goes quiet for like 10 seconds and then says, "That's impossible, man. I literally just saw you. We talked about the new Marvel display." So I FaceTime him to prove where I am. I can see him standing in the store, looking absolutely terrified. Behind him, I can see my register is open with a customer standing there looking confused. "This is so messed up," he says. "You were just here, like 30 seconds ago." Guys, I'm freaking out. What the hell is happening? My coworkers think I'm having some kind of mental episode. My roommates think I'm making this up for attention. But I swear on everything that this is really happening. Has anyone else experienced something like this? Like someone who looks and sounds exactly like you showing up places you're not? I'm starting to wonder if I actually have some kind of medical condition, or if there's someone actually out there pretending to be me. I need advice because this is really starting to scare me. So I'm a single mom with 2 kids. Emma, who's 14, and Jake, who's 12. We live in a pretty quiet neighborhood in Ohio. Nothing weird ever happens here. But over the past few weeks, some really strange things have been going on, and I honestly don't know what to think anymore. It started about 3 weeks ago. I work as a medical receptionist and I had to stay late to cover for a coworker who called in sick. I texted my boyfriend Marcus to let him know I'd be home around 7 instead of 5:30 like usual. The kids get off the bus at 3:45 and they're old enough to be alone for a couple of hours. They know the rules about not opening doors and all that. When I got home that night, Emma came running up to me with this confused look on her face. She asked why I had left again when she thought I was making them snacks. I had no idea what she meant. She explained that around 4:30, right after they'd gotten settled with homework, I had come into the kitchen and started making them apple slices with peanut butter. She said I was acting weird and quiet, which she thought was because I was tired after work. But here's the thing. I was at work until almost 7. There's no way I was home making snacks. I figured maybe she was confused about the timeline or something. Kids mix up days all the time, right? But then Jake backed up her story. He said I'd been there, but I smelled different. And when he tried to hug me, I just patted his head instead of giving him a proper hug like I always do. That gave me chills, but I tried to play it off. I asked them both to really think about what day this happened, and they were adamant it was that day, right after school. Emma even showed me the apple slices in the fridge that I had supposedly cut up. They were cut the way I always do them, into thin little wedges, not thick slices like Marcus makes. I didn't know what to think, so I didn't say anything else about it, but I started paying closer attention to things. A few days later, I was grocery shopping after work, and I got this weird phone call on my cell. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. I usually don't answer unknown numbers because they're most likely spam, but something made me feel like I should take this one. When I answered, I heard my own voice. The voice on the other end asked if this was Emma. I told her no, it wasn't. The voice then said it was Emma's mom, then requested to speak with her. It was perfectly calm, perfectly normal. Exactly how I sound when I'm talking to other parents at school or making polite phone calls. But I was standing in a Kroger, holding the phone talking to myself. I told the voice that Emma wasn't available and hung up immediately. My hands were literally shaking. I called the house right away and Emma picked up. She told me someone had just called asking to talk to them, but when she went to get Jake, the person had hung up. I asked if the voice sounded familiar, and she said it sounded like me, but not quite right. That night, I checked the caller ID on our home phone. The call had come from the same one that called my cell. Things stayed quiet for about a week after that. I was starting to convince myself that maybe those calls never really happened. Then last Tuesday, everything got so much worse. I had to drive down to Columbus for a work training that lasted all day. I left at 6 a.m. and didn't get home until almost 9. Marcus was supposed to come over around 8 to help the kids get ready for bed and wait for me to get back. When I walked in the door, Marcus was sitting on the couch looking totally normal, not worried or confused or anything. He asked me how the training went and mentioned that I had seemed pretty tired when he got there. I stared at him. I had just gotten home. We hadn't even talked. He gave me this weird look and insisted we had talked for like 20 minutes when he showed up. According to him, I told him about how the instructor was boring and made everyone do stupid role-playing exercises. I had complained about my feet hurting from my new shoes, then said I had to go take a bath. Here's the thing. The instructor was boring. We did do role-playing exercises, and my feet were absolutely killing me from the new flats I'd bought specifically for the training. But I'd just gotten home, not out of the bathroom. I tried to explain that I'd been in Columbus all day and had literally just walked through the door. He looked at me like I was having some kind of breakdown. He insisted I had been there when he arrived at 8, looking exhausted and saying I was going to take a bath. He'd been watching TV, waiting for me to come back downstairs. I showed him my phone with the GPS tracking showing my drive home from Columbus, ending at our house at 8:47 p.m. He looked at it, looked at me, and I watched his face just drain of color. He whispered that it was impossible. He had talked to me for 20 minutes. I had known about our plans for this weekend. I had reminded him that Jake has a soccer game on Saturday. We do have plans this weekend, and Jake does have a soccer game on Saturday. Those are things I would have said. I ran upstairs to check on the kids. They were both asleep, but when I kissed Emma goodnight, She mumbled something about me wearing different clothes. I asked her what she meant, but she was already falling back asleep. Marcus stayed over that night, but he barely slept. I could hear him tossing and turning, and every time I looked over at him, he was staring at the ceiling. The next morning, he pulled me aside while the kids were getting ready for school. He'd been thinking about it all night. When he was talking to whoever that was, they knew everything. They knew about my mom's birthday next week. They knew about the issues we've been having with Jake's teacher. They even mentioned that thing about wanting to repaint the bathroom that we talked about last weekend. Those are all things only I would know. Private conversations between me and Marcus. Concerns about my kids that I haven't shared with anyone else. But Marcus said there was something off. They answered everything correctly, but it felt rehearsed, like someone reading from a script of my life. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to set up cameras in the house, but I'm terrified of what I might see. Another part of me thinks we should just move. But how do you move from something that looks exactly like you? The kids haven't mentioned seeing me when I'm not home since that first incident, but they've both been acting clingy lately. Jake keeps asking me to promise I'm really me when I pick him up from school. And Emma has started doing this thing where she asks me questions that only the real me would know. Marcus says he believes me, but I can tell he's scared. He keeps looking at me like he's trying to figure out if I'm really me or if I'm the other one. I'm scared too. What if one day I come home and it's already here? What if my kids can't tell the difference? What if Marcus can't tell the difference? What if I'm the copy and I just don't know it? I'm starting to think my elderly mother isn't losing her mind after all. I'm 58, been a plumber for almost 40 years. My mom is 82 and I've been taking care of her since Dad passed 3 years ago. She's got some health issues, but mentally she's always been sharp as a tack. Until recently, I thought maybe that was starting to change. About 6 weeks ago, I stopped by her house after work like I do most days. I let myself in with my key and found her in the kitchen looking upset. She asked me why I had left so abruptly earlier and whether she had done something to make me angry. I had no idea what she was talking about. I told her I hadn't been there earlier, that I was coming straight from a job site. She got this hurt look on her face and insisted that I had stopped by around lunchtime. According to her, I had come in through the back door like I always do, sat at the kitchen table, and we talked about my youngest daughter's college plans. The thing is, I was installing a new water heater clear across town during lunch. I had the receipts and everything. But Mom was so convinced it had happened that she started getting agitated when I tried to tell her otherwise. She said I had seemed tired and distracted, and when she offered to make me a sandwich, I had just gotten up and left without saying goodbye. That's not like me at all. Even on my worst days, I don't just walk out on my mother. I figured maybe she had been napping and had a vivid dream or something. At 82, that kind of confusion can happen. I felt terrible thinking about it, but I started wondering if this was the beginning of dementia or Alzheimer's. But for the next month, everything seemed normal. My mom was her usual self, remembered everything clearly. No more strange stories about conversations we never had. I was actually relieved and started thinking that first incident was just a fluke. Then last Tuesday it happened again, and this time it really shook me up. I had spent the day working a complete bathroom renovation about an hour away. Didn't finish up until almost 7 and was exhausted, covered in tile dust and grout. I stopped by my mom's house to check on her before heading home to clean up. When I walked in, she was sitting in her recliner watching the news. She looked up and gave me this confused expression, like she was seeing double. She asked me why I had come back and whether I had forgotten something. I told her I hadn't been there earlier, that I was just stopping by after work. She shook her head and said no, I had been there around 3 p.m. We had sat in the living room and I had told her all about the bathroom job I was working on. She said I had even shown her pictures on my phone of the tile work. Here's what made my blood run cold. I had taken pictures of that tile work. It was a custom pattern I was proud of, and I wanted to show a few people. But I'd taken those photos around 4 p.m. after she said this conversation happened, and I definitely hadn't been to her house. Mom insisted that during our supposed conversation, I had seemed different somehow. More formal, she said, like I was being polite to a stranger instead of talking to my own mother. She said when she offered me coffee, I had said no thank you instead of just declining like I normally would. I tried to stay calm, but inside I was really worried. 2 incidences now, both involving detailed conversations that never happened. I was already mentally preparing to call her doctor about possible cognitive testing. Then she got up and walked over to the little table by her chair where she keeps her important things. She picked up her phone and said she wanted to show me the picture we had taken together earlier. I felt my stomach drop. We definitely hadn't taken any pictures. She pulled up her photo gallery and there it was, a selfie of me and her sitting on her couch. I was wearing the exact same work shirt I had on, even had the same smudge of grout on my collar. But in the photo I looked wrong somehow. My smile was too wide, too forced. My eyes looked flat. But the thing that really got to me was the timestamp. The photo was taken at 3:17 p.m. At 3:17, I was 45 minutes away laying tile in someone else's bathroom. I asked Mom if she remembered taking the picture, and she said of course, I had suggested it. Said I wanted a nice photo of the two of us. But she mentioned that when I had held the phone to take the selfie, my hands felt cold even though it was warm in the house. I've been staring at that photo for days now. It's definitely my face, my clothes, even my work van is visible through the window behind us. But I know for a fact I wasn't there. I've got text messages with my customer, time-stamped photos of my work, even a receipt from the hardware store I stopped at around 3:30. The worst part is that Mom looks happy in the photo. She's smiling like she's enjoying spending time with her son. But whatever was sitting next to her on that couch, it wasn't me. I don't know what to think anymore. Part of me wants to believe Mom is just confused, that there's some reasonable explanation. But that photo exists. It's right there on her phone. Has anyone else ever experienced something like this? I'm scared to leave her alone now, but I don't know how to explain why without sounding crazy myself. My social circle is falling apart because of things I apparently did, but have no memory of. I'm 34, work in corporate finance, and I've been single by choice for years. I'm not interested in dating, relationships, or any of that. My friend groups have always known this about me. We're a tight group of 6 people who've known each other since college, and we get together regularly for drinks, dinner, game nights, that sort of thing. But over the past 6 months, everything has started falling apart, and I honestly don't know what to do anymore. It started back in February. I was in Chicago for a work conference, completely swamped with presentations and client meetings. The conference ran late every night, and I was exhausted. Meanwhile, back at home, my friend group had their usual Friday night gatherings at Mike's place. When I got back the following week, Sarah pulled me aside at work. She seemed really uncomfortable and asked if everything was okay with me lately. I told her I was fine, just tired from travel. Then she said I had been acting really strange at Mike's on Friday, that I seemed distant and kept making these weird comments about people we went to college with. I told her I hadn't been at Mike's, that I was in Chicago. She looked at me like I was lying and said, no, I had definitely been there. Everyone remembered me being there. According to her, I had sat in my usual spot on the couch, drank my usual beer, and participated in conversations for hours. I showed her my hotel receipts, my flight information, even photos from the conference. She just stared at everything and said she must be misremembering, but she seemed really shaken up. A few weeks later, it happened again. This time I was visiting my parents 3 states away for Easter weekend. It was a long-planned trip. Everyone knew I'd be gone. But when I got back, Tom confronted me about something that had supposedly happened at their group dinner on Saturday night. He said I had shown up to the restaurant uninvited, sat down at their table, and started complaining about work in this really negative way that wasn't like me at all. He said I was being rude to the waitstaff and generally bringing down the whole group. Eventually, I'd just gotten up and left without explanation, sticking them with my portion of the bill. This really hurt because Tom and I have been best friends since sophomore year. The idea that he thought I would do something like that was devastating. I tried to explain where I had actually been, showed him pictures from Easter dinner with my family, but he just said I was making excuses for bad behavior. The third incident happened in late spring. I was working late on a quarterly report that was due the next morning. Stayed in the office until almost 2 a.m. Security cameras and badge swipes can verify this. But apparently I had also been at Jenny's birthday party that same night. This one was the worst because, according to everyone there, I had spent the entire evening hitting on Jenny in front of the whole group. They said I was being really pushy and inappropriate, making comments about how good she looked, suggesting we should go back to my place. Jenny was so uncomfortable she ended up leaving her own birthday party early. When Mike told me this, I was horrified. I've never hit on Jenny or any woman in our group. Everyone knows I'm not interested in dating anyone, male or female. I've been consistent about this for years. The idea that I would make Jenny uncomfortable like that made me physically sick. But when I tried to explain where I really was that night, Mike just shook his head and said I needed to take responsibility for my actions instead of making up stories. The final straw came about a month ago. I was at a weekend work retreat, a mandatory team building thing that I couldn't skip. The whole thing was documented on social media by a company's marketing department. But somehow I was also at Dave's housewarming party that same Saturday. According to Sarah, I had shown up to Dave's new place acting really strange. I apparently knew details about his house that he had never shared with the group, like which room used to be painted blue, or where the previous owners had left a stain on the hardwood. I also kept asking to use the bathroom even though I had just been in there. She said the weirdest part was that I seemed to know things about everyone's recent conversations and activities that I shouldn't have known. Like I had been listening to their private discussions somehow. But I was also getting basic facts wrong, like mixing up people's job titles or forgetting things that had happened just a week before. Now nobody in the group will talk to me. They think I'm either having some kind of mental breakdown or that I'm deliberately lying to them about where I've been. Jenny won't even look at me when we run into each other, which breaks my heart because I genuinely care about her as a friend. I've tried showing them proof of where I actually was during these incidences, but they just think I'm being manipulative. Tom told me that making up elaborate lies with fake evidence was somehow worse than just admitting I'd been acting weird. The thing that really gets to me is that they're describing behavior that's completely out of character for me. I would never be rude to restaurant staff. I would never make unwanted advances on anyone. and I would never just leave people stuck with a bill. But they're so convinced it was me that they won't even consider that something else might be going on. I'm losing my closest friends over things I didn't do, and I have no way to prove my innocence. I've started wondering if I should see a doctor, maybe get some kind of neurological testing done. But I know I wasn't at those places. I have proof I wasn't at those places. I'm starting to feel like I'm losing my mind, and I don't know how to fix any of this. I just want my friends back, but I don't know how to convince them that whatever they saw, it wasn't really me. My regular dog walking clients say their pets are terrified of me now. I'm 24 and I've been dog walking as a side hustle for about 2 years while I finish my master's degree. I've got maybe 8 regular clients in my neighborhood, all dogs I've known since they were puppies, or at least for over a year. These dogs love me, get excited when they see me coming, you know, the whole thing. Until 3 weeks ago when everything went sideways. It started with Mrs. Patterson and her golden retriever Bailey. I've been walking Bailey twice a week for 18 months. He's the sweetest dog, always jumps on me when I get there and brings me his leash. But when I showed up for our usual Tuesday walk, Mrs. Patterson seemed confused and said Bailey had been acting strange ever since my visit the day before. I told her I hadn't been there Monday. Bailey's walks are Tuesdays and Fridays. But she insisted I had shown up Monday afternoon, and that Bailey had hidden under the kitchen table when I tried to put his leash on. She said he was whimpering and wouldn't come near me, which had never happened before. She thought maybe he was getting sick. I figured there was some misunderstanding, but when I tried to greet Bailey that Tuesday, he backed away from me. This dog, who usually tackles me with excitement, was keeping his distance, ears down and tail tucked. He let me walk him, but stayed as far from me as the leash would allow the entire time. The next week, it got worse. I got a call from another client, Mr. Rodriguez, asking if everything was okay with me. He said when I came to pick up his beagle Luna on Wednesday, she had started barking and ran to hide behind the couch. Luna has never barked at me in her life. Mr. Rodriguez said I seemed different too, quieter than usual, and that I left quickly when Luna wouldn't cooperate. But I hadn't been there Wednesday. I was in class until 6 p.m., then studying at the library until close. I tried to explain this, but Mr. Rodriguez just sounded more concerned and said maybe I should take some time off if I was having memory issues. The final incident happened last week with the Johnsons and their 2 corgis, Biscuit and Gravy. These dogs go absolutely nuts with joy when they see me, but Mrs. Johnson called me upset, saying something was very wrong. She said when I showed up for their walk on Thursday, both dogs started growling at me from behind the front door. When she opened it, they wouldn't come outside, and Biscuit actually snapped at me when I reached for his collar. She said the weird part was that I just stood there staring at the dogs without saying anything, like I was trying to figure out what to do. Usually I would have been talking to them, using their names, trying to calm them down. Instead, I apparently just turned around and left without a word. I was at my girlfriend's apartment Thursday helping her move. We were there all day with 3 other friends. I have pictures, witnesses, and everything. But here's what really scares me. Mrs. Johnson mentioned that when the person who looked like me was standing at her door, her dogs weren't just scared. They were terrified in a way she'd never seen before. She said it was like they sensed something predatory. Dogs don't lie. They can't be confused about who you are the way humans can. These animals have known me for at least a year. They know my scent, my voice, my energy. If they're suddenly terrified of someone who looks exactly like me, then that someone isn't me. I've lost 3 clients already, Word is getting around that I'm unreliable, or that something is wrong with me. But I know I wasn't at those houses, and I know those dogs would never act that way around the real me. Whatever showed up at their doors, it wasn't human. Dogs can sense that kind of thing. They're warning their families about something dangerous that just happens to wear my face. I don't know what to do. How do you fight something that looks exactly like you, but that every dog in the neighborhood knows is wrong? You have been watching Noir, a Radion production brought to you by Trapper Dan, the finest in canned survival food.